Jennifer Justice is moderating this session. JJ founded the Justice Department, a management strategy and legal firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their value, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. And we're also joined by CeCe Olisa, who is the founder and curator of Curvy Girls Guide. They are both fantastic, and so I'm excited for this founder spotlight on building founder DNA. Hi, JJ and CeCe.
Hi.
Hi.
My dog in the background barking, of course, right as we're going live. So
take it away, and thank you for being here today. And hi, CeCe. It's great to see you too.
thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Juliet said, I'm Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department. And with me here today is CeCe Olisa. CeCe is a multi-hyphenate, obviously an entrepreneur, because what we're talking about here is building founder DNA. But she is the co-founder of CurvyCon. She is, she did a TEDx, How to Build Self-Confidence. And, you know, over 650,000 people have viewed it so far. She has a tagline, don't wait on your weight. She is creator, founder of Curvy Girls Guide, a model. Her whole mission is to make plus size women more visible in the world and giving them tools to build confidence. So thank you, CeCe, for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And in straight transparency, you know, she's a client of the Justice Department. So, you know, I am here to help you all understand the fabulousness and, you know, of CeCe and why she's so important in this world. And I'm very excited. So, you know, let's dive right in. The first thing, you know, in building a founder DNA, you know, let's start in the beginning of your founder journey. You know, what was that? You want to talk about CurvyCon a little bit?
Yes, of course. So hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I saw there were like over 100 or so people in the chat. So hello. The CurvyCon, I left my corporate job and founded the CurvyCon in 2015. And in 2019 was our 5-year anniversary. We're currently on hiatus due to the pandemic, but in the 5 years that we grew that business, it was amazing to watch the community grow. That was my favorite thing, to watch women who would come year over year, maybe come the first year by themselves, come later with friends, make friends. And it was all centered around giving, you know, 67% of American women wear above a size 14. That's the majority of women. Like that's a lot of women, right?
A lot of women, yes.
And so what I was finding in my life as a curvy girl was that I would go to fun conferences and, you know, there would be all the exhibitions and things would be going on. I could get the lipstick and I could get the book, but the minute there was like a fashion anything, suddenly I was excluded from that experience. So my vision for the CurvyCon was to have one of those big, you know, lifestyle fashion conventions, put it right up alongside New York Fashion Week, because plus size fashion is fashion, and give curvy girls the experience that they often feel excluded from. So whether that's shopping, whether that's inspirational panels and workshops, things like that, but just to provide that experience for the majority of women who somehow get left out of the fashion conversation.
Right. So there you hit on, is like, what's the purpose? What was the reason behind it, right? It was like there was a void in the marketplace. You were not served. You knew that 67% of women, right? So that's over a quarter of our population, are in the same, you know, bucket as you are. And so, okay, let's like do something and, you know, and highlight them, right? Give them something. So like, let's talk about that from a technical point of view. Like, how did you do it? Right? So it's not easy. You're like, that sounds like a great idea, but yeah.
Yes. So I will give you, you know, my heart response, and then I'll give you like the logistics. So my heart response is that community every single time. So I was a fashion blogger in New York City, and over the course of, sharing my evolution towards body positivity, embracing my curves, things like that here in New York, I amassed, a following of women around the world who were inspired by that narrative of don't wait on your way to live the life you want. Therefore, when I decided to co-found the CurvyCon, I had people to speak to about that. It wasn't kind of from nothing. So I think the community is always going to be the first answer in how I did this. Right. And I think they come up again because, I'm sure you guys have read recently all the conversations about, Black women and, kind of how getting capital and stuff can be a little bit more challenging. I don't think I ever considered anything but my community ever. So the first time we raised money, we bootstrapped it, and we didn't go to banks or anything. We sold the clothes out of our closets. We sold our clothes to our community. Right. We were like, hey, we're these fashion bloggers. You like our style. We wear the same size because that's why you follow us. Take it all. So like the hangers were like swinging in my closet, but we took that money and we put that down on the first space because we couldn't do anything until we had put down a deposit on the space. We took that, 5-figure amount that we raised. We sold a lot of clothes and we took that and put it in. And then the community bought tickets. Brands and investors came later on. So it really was community in the beginning.
Right. No, so you hit on something, as we all know, we're here at Women and Worth. So we know the, statistics around 2% of women getting VC funding and 0.5 if you're a woman of color. So you're like, you know what, I'm not going to wait on that. I'm going to wait, and I'm not going to wait on your money. Instead, we're going to figure it out ourselves because our community needs this and our community is massive, right? And so that grew very quickly. Talk about like how, people reacted, how brands reacted who wanted to come in, because all of these live events are really dependent upon brands, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, so I can say that the CurvyCon has grown pretty quickly. We've been sold out every single year since our inception, and we have doubled year over year. In some years, we 4x'd what was going on. So year one, we're like half a day, half a floor on a convention center. Our 5-year anniversary last year, it was like multi-floor, multi-day. There, big, all of the partners that you would dream of were there. And that was like 5 years of building into that. So the brand response has been great. Serving 67% of American women, it's fun. There's a lot you can do with that.
Right. So how did you keep, like you were saying, it's like, look, you cared about your community, and what was that in you that just kept that going, right? And kept, because it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy to do live events. And
I think for anything that I create or build or anything like that, I kind of have 3 pillars that I like to kind of work within. Right. And they are visibility, education, and community. So I've talked a lot about community. I should probably talk about the visibility and the education. Right. I think, when you hear women say you can't be who you can't see, right? Like that's really important for women to be able to see people doing the things that they want to do. For me, I didn't often see women who looked like me living the life that I wanted to live, right? When we partnered, so I became a Nike ambassador about a year before Nike became a sponsor of the CurvyCon. So Nike and I have a really great relationship. And I don't know if you remember, there was that plus size curvy Nike mannequin. Like she was like posed like this in the store. It went viral. It was this whole thing, right? And I literally was traveling with Nike in Paris as this thing was like exploding. So I had the ear of the Nike women team. And so we were talking about CurvyCon, and I was like, listen, CurvyCon is in the fall. I promise you, if we're able to work together on this and you can get me that mannequin, that visibility, like my girls need to see that, right? It was so funny to me, like when September came and Nike had signed on and I was going through the social for the CurvyCon, one of our notable speakers was a Project Runway designer, and in her Instagram was her next to the Nike mannequin, and I'm just like, this is it. Like that's that visibility and that empowerment. And then the education, I think it's fun. You don't know what you don't know at the same time. And so I have a relationship with my community where they'll ask me, where'd you get shoes? What was that Prosecco recipe? Like all these different things. So I try to aggregate like top questions and do more educational series around them. So last Fashion Week was the first time we didn't have CurvyCon, the pandemic, things like that.
Right.
And so I decided to do a whole series for fall fashion on capsule closet. So the idea of taking like 10 pieces and making as many, outfits out of that as possible. And it was great because education was already at the focus. I knew I was going to be teaching that. And then like Target came along like right at the same time. And we were able to do this great, like super diverse, like 12 women, like series around that. And it was like an easy tie-in because I was teaching something that was kind of like an evergreen concept that like all women would be interested in. So between that, so the visibility, the community, all that kind of stuff, the education, if things kind of wheel within that, anything from like outfits to flower arranging to whatever, that's kind of where I like to play with like content, commerce, things like that.
Right. So what, back to like the founder DNA, it's like about purpose, it's about authenticity, and it's about continuing to find those, because ultimately CurvyCon evolved and then you sold it, right?
Yeah, we got acquired by, one of the things I feel very blessed about in my career is like I was listening in on some of the sessions yesterday and listening to Lauren. I always mispronounce her last name, McMillian, I think. And she was talking about, people of color and women of color and the struggle. I've been very blessed to have women who saw what I was doing and kind of rallied around me, like in a very specific way. And some of that came from investment and that culminated into the CurvyCon being acquired, which was amazing because they saw not only the vision of the CurvyCon, but to keep me involved in the process, right? So I was able to execute my vision more easily because of the investors and the acquisition. But these are women who look nothing like me. So there are women who are open and can see the possibilities of like, okay, like, I don't really know anyone like this girl, but like, I like what she's doing and I'm into it. And like, I grew up in kind of a diverse community. So I'm like, hey, if you're down, like, let's talk, right? And to see something like that, like the day that they brought up acquisition, like I was just like frozen, like I was just like, oh my God, like it's like all just from women supporting women. It's like the dream.
And so, but you're a founder at heart, right? So you had to evolve into your next iteration of building your next business, which is founding, the Curvy Girls Guide, and really building the CeCe Olisa brand empire. Let's call it an empire because that's what we know it's happening right now. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but you did bring up a great partnership that I happen to know a lot about because I was involved in it. And that was, with Target, and understanding, because there were no live events and something like that, like how could you engage your community in a different way that, wasn't really that obvious, but because of who you are and, your audience better than anybody, like talk a little bit about that conversation with them and how that evolved, into what you actually did versus what they wanted you to do or what they wanted, which is more live experience stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I think I'll say I'm a founder by force, not necessarily by I'm a collaborative person, right? So being a founder, it's a whole different level of attention. It's a whole different emotional journey and things like that. So I will say for those who are scared to do it alone, like it is scary, like I'm not gonna lie, but it can be worth it. And I think one of the things that's worth it for me right now is with the CurvyCon, one of the challenges I started to run into year 5 was that I started to notice that the plus size woman sometimes wasn't seen as a holistic woman. It was like, she cares about clothes because she's plus size and she needs the jeans and like, that's that. And I would, talk in meetings about how she drinks wine or, travels, she buys cars, she has credit cards, like all these interesting things. And it was kind of like, yeah, but the jeans, right? And so for me, because I want to serve my community holistically, I think I have a really good anchor with the CurvyCon, and I'm excited for what the future holds for that business when the time is right. But right now I get to play in more inclusive spaces. And I think that has a lot of possibility.
Right. And so with that in particular, that partnership, you went from, you basically took your community and you got to show them right there how, and interact with them and survey them and get data and information. You did a whole, IGTV was supposed to be an hour and ended up being way over 2. And then
it was the
clothes were sent to them, and they got their moment in the sun to shine. And just goes to show you like how, your quote unquote product, right? Everybody founder has a company that they know who they serve, right? And your community, that you were the one that was relentless about saying to your partners, like, I know them better than you. Like, you're trying to get in this business. It's great. I'm so happy you are, but I know them better than you. And I'm going to show you how you're going to engage them. And they're going to give you way more media than you ever thought. That, because you could do it at a live event and they'll just walk by and maybe they'll see you, right? But this way, it just was like engaging a bunch of people. So it was always like very impressive. And so tell us more about like what the Curvy Girl's Guide is.
Yeah, so I think right now what I'm looking at is when it comes to experiential, I feel very confident about that world for me. So I think right now I'm looking more at media, looking more at beauty, things like that. I think there are ways that body positivity and self-love in my own personal journey really spilled out into my life, right? Like when I started to love myself more, when I started to feel better about myself, there are just ways that I treated myself differently. And I've noticed that as I kind of open up into those things, my community is really savvy, right? So they're like, okay, I saw you went to, Martha's Vineyard. Like, how did you do that? Like, I saw you went here. Like, what did you wear? Like, how do you deal with this or whatever? So I think I'm really looking at scaling down into really authentic niche relationships with brand partners who want to like play and be creative and start to really be intentional about the content. Like my community is savvy. So like sponsored posts, like they get it, they've seen it, like they want something a little deeper. And so from a creative perspective, I do have those things to give. I do have a lot of creative and media kind of threads that we're working on, the Curvy Girl's Guide being one of them. We're digging deep in the month of March into morning routines. So we'll be looking at, what does that look like? What does your bathrobe look like? What does your tea kettle look like? What does your journaling practice look like? So really looking at how do you love yourself holistically?
Right. And so in doing that, and building out this, empire, right? Like, I love what you were saying earlier. It's kind of like you started CurvyCon as a niche of like, okay, nobody's looking at us in plus size fashion. And then you started realizing, okay, brands are addressing it. And there's a little bit of what, you see to the 67% of women, right? And it's starting to happen. But then you also started noticing, and to the evolution of the Curvy Girl's Guide, and then the evolution of the CeCe Olisa empire, like, and brand, and building out what all of that means is, okay, but we do all these other things too, right? So where am I seeing me in, home decor? Where am I seeing me in, TV shows, in film? Where am I seeing me and talking, in, like you said, wine, and, all the other areas of just a day or week, week in the life of a woman, right?
Yes.
And so how do you see that, progressing, right? Where do you, yeah.
One of the things that I feel like I hear people talk about a lot when I do different conversations or panels or events and things, a lot of times the conversation is around how the media is the reason why girls especially, women especially, like feel bad about themselves, right? And so to me, I'm like, if everyone's saying the media is the problem, then why not create media that's like positive, that's like a solution, right? Like the blueprint is right there, right? So if people posing a certain way on Instagram all the time, but they only have a certain body, makes 67% of women feel bad about themselves, maybe a woman in a different body showing up in the world, doing things that like
Right.
women do, right? Suddenly media can become the solution. Like to me, it's like right there. It's like right there, right? But I think that's where, I become an interesting kind of liaison between those women and the brands that want to serve them, right? So what are the stories that you're telling? Who is in those stores? I just did a collab with 1-800-Flowers, and it was
yeah.
me that they were like interested, because like my desire is to work with inclusive brands that women would be attracted to. Flower arranging is a big passion of mine, but at the end of the day, like I didn't know if like I would be, like you don't always know. So looking at, instead of, I think in the beginning with my fashion blog and with the CurvyCon, it was like anyone who gets it can come in. And now I'm like being a little bit more selective, because the deep, authentic work, it really does change lives. Like women feel better about themselves. And when they do that, they start to invest in themselves. It's like,
And showing them more, right? So there's a big difference between you taking a photo and being, quote unquote influencer, than you actually being seen as like a partner or talent, right? And that's where it's like growing and becoming bigger, and that's what I like, that I've seen this shift in you, and it's like amazing. And, and it shows also brands like, you can partner with me. I'm going to help you understand who these people are. I'm going to help you to see that it's like one post and you pay me money. That's fine. But like, how do we actually authentically partner together, like you have with Loft? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, you've done posts for them, but you do so much more.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing I would say regarding that, like I've definitely done amazing partnerships. And whether people partner with me or someone else, I have seen firsthand what it looks like for a woman who doesn't feel represented to see herself, whatever that may be, whether it's race, whether it's size, whether it's hair texture, right? I've never seen someone like that doing this. Is the most mind-blowing experience for women. Yeah. And it could be finding a moto jacket in their size. It could be seeing a brown girl playing with flowers, right? Like it could be whatever those things are, but it's transformed. There are magazines I've subscribed to this day, because when I was a teenager, there was someone on the cover who kind of looked like me. And I always remembered like, okay, they're down for girls like me. So I think that's to me the most important thing when you're looking at, as a founder, my desire would be that brands could see that if women see themselves reflected, it's such a beautiful experience. And there's just like, it's infinitely giving. Like it just, like once that confidence comes up, then like you're talking about yourself better, your little girl is right there listening. Like it just like goes and goes and goes. And I just see how, I don't know, karmic it is. I don't know how to explain it. I'm excited.
No, it's like, look, we talked about your purpose, right? And it's like, this is your purpose, and you never stray from that purpose. It's authenticity, right? It's the confidence, even though, I'm sure like, you're giving all these lessons on it. You did a TEDx talk on it, the Curvy Girls Guide, you're speaking to your audience, you're doing IGs with them, like building your confidence. It's like, you have to do it. So you have to, drum it up for yourself as well, right? And that tenacity. And ultimately it's like making sure you're pushing yourself forward and that vision, right? And that is, really what it's all about, and so, that they're your founder DNA and, a nutshell. So can you believe it? We already have to wrap up. So I want to, I would love to just like say, what's the future? What can we look forward to for CeCe Olisa?
Yes. Future. Okay, so top of mind right now for me, I just moved into a new apartment yesterday. So I am thinking a lot about home decor. Wellness is always on my mind. And I'm trying to think what else. Beauty. I'm really focused on body beauty right now. I think a lot of the beauty industry is focused like on the neck up. And I think even for me, like the areas of my body that I've had trouble with, it's kind of nice to moisturize those or do little things for those a little more, take a nice bath, all those types of things. So I'm looking at how can I take my community through like the recipes, rituals, routines that kind of boost confidence in those ways. So wellness, how does your house look? Things like that, beauty.
I love it. Okay.
Go for it.
Everyone seems to love you. I'm seeing all these chats in the comments. You're amazing. I love your energy. Thank you so much, Juliet. Thank you, Worth. Thank you,
Juliet. Love you.
Thank you, community. Follow CeCe Olisa and to see what this beauty thing is. I know, but I can't tell you. All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.